This is BBC Radio 5 Live, available on the BBC Sounds app. Sunday Breakfast.
Good morning. You're very welcome to the programme. It's just coming up to 20 to 8 this morning. Thousands of people have received extra bills from the taxman following a change in the law known as the loan charge. In fact, we're talking about nearly 50,000 people. It affects those who've worked in jobs like freelance IT contractors, oil and gas workers, doctors, social workers, nurses. So right across the spectrum, and many have been asked by HMRC to pay back tens of thousands of pounds, dating back to 1999, which many say they simply can't afford. Sarah was an IT contractor and has been asked to pay back a really, really big sum. She's joining us this morning. Hi there, Sarah.
Morning.
We're also joined by Keith Gordon, who's a tax barrister. Keith, I want to have a quick chat with you first. Just talk us through this loan charge. So this is effectively, instead of being paid a wage, a lot of contractors were given what was loosely termed a loan. Talk us through the difficulties with that.
Well, that was the background. But everyone who participated was told this was an ordinary and acceptable way of being paid, and the correct tax was being paid at the time. What's happened is that the revenue claim that they didn't actually agree with that particular treatment, but they didn't actually tell anyone. So they were effectively giving everyone a green light. This is acceptable. And then after 10, 15 years, they suddenly announced they don't like what's been going on. You should have paid more tax at the beginning. And now, even though we've missed the time limits for getting you and making you pay that tax, we're going to impose a new charge so that we get a second bite at the cherry.
So this is not necessarily a sort of hidden means or some sort of backhanded way of avoiding paying national insurance contributions and all those other things that your employee pays when they pay you a wage, but it was upfront in a way.
Absolutely. Most people who participated told the revenue. In fact, there were special rules which make sure that ever since 2004, if you've got particular kinds of arrangements, you have to tell the revenue. You get a special number known as a scheme reference number. You put that on your tax return, or if you're an employer, you put it on a P35. So the revenue know about it. They can identify who they want to pick up. And if they don't actually take the action in time and make the statements, taxpayers are just going to assume it must be fine, and therefore they'll enter it into a further year and tell their friends that this is an acceptable way of being paid.
Mm-hmm. And Sarah, that basically happened to you. When did you first decide to get this loan? When did it first come your way rather than a wage?
2009.
So a good long time ago. Well, why did you go down that route?
It's a chain of events that happened to me. I moved out. I had to leave the family home due to a violent ex, and I had to find somewhere to live. The only option was private accommodation. I spent a while living 200 miles away and commuting to London from there because there was nowhere to go. Moved into private rented accommodation, and my incoming money exceeded my outgoings, and I was just getting further and further into debt. And a colleague said that there was this particular scheme and that it was legal, HMRC compliant, which I checked, and apparently it was at the time, and it enabled me to keep my head above water when I was trying to go through the route of getting child maintenance, that kind of thing.
So when you say a colleague told you, that was someone else working in the IT sector, saying that everyone's doing this, or that they were getting paid that way?
Well, at the time, he said he was using it, and subsequently, I found out it's not. You don't talk particularly about what you earn, etc. at work, do you? No one does that.
No one talks about their wages.
Speaking over coffee and having a good moan that day, and he went, "Well, this is what I do, and I've done it for X number of years." And then somebody said, "Oh, I do the same," and I thought, "Oh, well, it's got to be worth doing." So,
and you obviously were getting advice from an accountant or somebody to help you do that.
Accountant. Mm-hmm. Yeah, I've always had an accountant. I don't do it myself.
And
I don't know the law on it.
You've had a pretty horrendous bill land on your doorstep.
Yeah. I mean, I have, yes, I have, and it's shocking. It really is. I mean, the first thing I realised was when the letter came through the door, and I'm not the only one. As far as I was aware, it was something that was compliant, had been signed off by the taxman, and then 5-6 years later, you get the thing through the door saying, well, actually, we've changed our mind on this, and we're now going to ask you for this money back.
So it's back pay for all the years that you were doing that, were in that loan scheme.
Yes, that's right. Yeah,
The
it's a
whole lot.
guesstimation, though. It's
The whole lot paid back in one go, though. I mean, it's a big lump.
If you don't pay it, then they whack on, another, all the interest effectively, that you've not paid it. So as if you hadn't paid a bill, they just bill the interest year on year and then they get their total that way.
And what impact is that going to have for you now on your finances to try and deal with that?
Well, I can't. I don't have that money. I don't own a house. I don't. So I can't. They're wasting their time with me because it will just force me down the bankruptcy route. But I mean, it's very stressful. It's hanging over your head. You can't get to sleep, or you get to sleep, then you wake up and that kind of thing. So and I have 3 children, one who's disabled, so I've got to think about looking after them too. And if you can't sleep, then it affects you.
Keith, this story is worryingly familiar, that a lot of people now are coming forward and saying, I simply cannot afford to pay this bill back. I didn't know that it was due, and suddenly it's landed on the doorstep in one go. What can somebody like Sarah do now?
Well, anyone who's has this over them must seek help. And I think there are 2 different sources that people should go to. First of all, Sarah is not alone. There is an organisation known as the Loan Charge Action Group, which is made up of people who are similar victims of this loan charge. And whilst they are also trying to fight the legislation, they are also providing support services to its members. So I would suggest anyone who's affected, contact them. But also organisations such as the Low Incomes Tax Reform Group have got advice on their website telling people what they should do if there's a way that they can settle their affairs with the revenue.
Keith, does it feel like the government are going after the wrong people here, rather than going after the companies who are paying through these loan charges and effectively avoiding having to pay a lot of extra national insurance contributions and all the rest of it? They're going after the individuals who received it. Does it feel like the wrong way around?
Absolutely, because if PAYE was deductible in the first place, it is the employers who should be paying it. And there are special rules which allow the revenue to go to the employers. The problem is the revenue have just simply missed the deadlines, and they are now going for people they thought would be the easy, low-hanging fruit, not necessarily realising that people in this sector actually can be quite active, vocal, and have actually caused a bit of a fuss. But my real concern is that the government seems to think that it can change the rules retrospectively for one group of taxpayers. And most of us, if we're not in that field, think, oh, well, this doesn't affect us. But once you start changing the rules and removing those protections, who knows what's going to come around the corner?
Keith, thank you for joining us. Keith Gordner, who's a tax barrister. And Sarah, thank you for sharing your story with us this morning. An IT contractor who has been asked to pay back a very large sum of money indeed. It's 7:45.
What is man?